Okay, I just have to do a reply to this. I just really do. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and under fair use. Okay, I'm going to play this. I may not play the whole thing through, but there's some things I want to point out here. Okay, this video went up, okay, on the 25th of November. So it ain't been up all that long. And it's on the homelessness in Sacramento. So let's watch this. Because this here just, it fires me up. I just have to say some crap about what you're about to hear.
We're looking at a world most of us would never want to visit. A place that feels safer from a distance, filled with people we would never want to know.
You like that? Filled full of people you wouldn't want to know, that you keep distance from you.
And yet we cannot take our eyes off of them. This is homelessness, up close and personal.
This is homelessness, up close and personal, right? Where a big percentage of them, well, even if they were working full time, wouldn't be able to afford a one-bedroom apartment with their full-time check, which would force them to be homeless. That's right. And even if a person's homeless, it doesn't mean that they're a drug addict. Okay, I understand you get a lot of people that are homeless because they're hooked up on drugs and blah, 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 and all the stuff people say. I understand that we do have that going on. But you have a lot more than that going on, okay? But let's go on.
In Sacramento, California,
Oh, no, I don't want to talk about
a state with the 5th largest economy in the world. A state and a city with a problem and no clear solutions.
Yeah, I have to look for another spot to move to.
California's homeless problem has reached epidemic proportions. An underculture of the forlorn, struggling for health.
Right. And this I've heard, just like in New York, it's reached an epidemic. Well, of course it has. When you're in a world full of people who don't care, and everything's based on who can one-up somebody else, it's all a game of competition, and to become successful, you walk on other people. That's right. You step on other people. You absolutely have no care. You keep rising the price of everything, rising the rent up above what an income is. So the average people working a full-time job no longer can afford a roof over their head. Even if they spent all their money, they still wouldn't have enough. And then you wonder why the homelessness keeps rising, huh?
Dignity. The challenges, the impacts, the possible solutions. Searching for hope. Homeless in Sacramento. Ahern Street in Sacramento at North B. In the middle of a great city with beautiful river views and home to the governor and California state capital. There are places where conditions border on the medieval.
my stuff. It don't smell.
No bathrooms, no running water, a minefield of infectious disease and gloom, and just one location among many in Sacramento. Under the freeway near Broadway. 31-year-old Kenneth Whitlock. Depending on who describes him, he's either a victim, a villain, or a rebel. There is no question that this environment has shaped him.
I have no parents. They're gone. My dad died. My mom died. So.
And now Kenneth Whitlock has become a symbol, especially to the city of Sacramento. The city attorney has filed an unprecedented lawsuit charging Kenneth and 6 other homeless people with being a public nuisance and a drain on police resources. The city wants them banned from the Broadway corridor. The legal action has ignited a fierce debate.
There's a statute that defines a public nuisance, and individuals are not a public nuisance. It's unprecedented. This is so totally contrary to our Constitution, our understanding of rights to travel freely.
Civil rights attorney Mark Barron represents Kenneth pro bono.
We're so far from actually living our principles in this country. It makes me just very angry, frustrated, and I feel that most of the people who are making these decisions are just hypocrites.
I would agree. I would agree. We're way away from any of that. What he said is true. And yes, most of them are hypocrites and all about their own selfish interest. Like the rest of pretty much the rest of everybody, right? All about yourself. You lost your ability to care. Greed, greed, greed. More for yourself, and who cares about the other? That's right. That's what's going on here.
The reality is that they're really being criminalized for just being poor or homeless.
Correct. You're being criminalized for being poor and being homeless. You're criminalized because you wasn't successful enough to be able to afford $4, $5, $6,000 a month for a one bedroom, right? You wasn't successful enough for the job that paid you, that you worked at 40 hours a week, that paid you. They didn't pay you enough. That's right. So that's a criminal offense on you. Yeah.
Specifically, the lawsuit charges Kenneth with vandalism and theft.
I don't steal from the poor. I steal from the rich. That's all I'm gonna say.
Robin Hood. I don't steal from the poor, only from the rich. Well, that's still against the law. They're going to say to steal from the rich, even though the rich are stealing from the poor, and it seems to be a double standard there. It's not illegal for the rich to steal from you.
Being honest.
He is also charged with drug-related crimes.
These are new ones? Yeah.
Most of the homeless do drugs. They do meth, crystal meth. They do heroin. They do everything. Because they're sad, they're depressed, they're miserable. Being on the streets, being on the slums in Sacramento.
Here on the streets, laws mean little. Unwritten codes become gospel. The homeless live in a morally flipped universe where what's right can be wrong, and what's wrong often becomes right.
Okay, let's play this again. I want you to think about what they just said about the homeless.
Just being poor or homeless.
Specifically, the lawsuit charges Kenneth with vandalism and theft.
I don't steal from the poor. I steal from the rich. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm being honest.
He is also charged with drug-related crimes.
These are new ones? Yeah.
Most of the homeless do drugs. They do meth, crystal meth. They do heroin. They do everything. Because they're sad, they're depressed, they're miserable. Being on the streets, being on the slums in Sacramento.
Here on the
Now this is where he's going to flip it.
streets, laws mean little. Unwritten codes become gospel. The homeless live in a morally flipped universe where...
No, this is where he lies to you. He's going to tell you that the homeless live in a morally flipped universe.
What's right can be wrong, and what's wrong often becomes right.
Which right has become wrong. Okay, and wrong has become right. Well, that morally flipped universe he's talking about where right has become wrong and wrong has become right isn't in the homeless. How about it's in the entire country of the USA? How about it's in every single city and it's not the homeless? It's the justice system. It's the school system. It's what's being normalized. People's behaviors. It's the double standards, and we go on and on with the list of that. But what he just said is correct, but no. He's pointing what our entire country is doing on a normal basis and blaming what they're doing out of the homelessness. Complete crock of crap.
I hustle. I do whatever it takes to get the next buck. Not do whatever it takes like sexual, but I hustle as in I do whatever it takes to ease myself, to ease my pain.
The drug dealers coming to these people who are living in these camps to
come from the CIA and the U.S. government, who puts the drugs on the street in the first damn place.
Sell them drugs.
Selling drugs while living practically right next door to the genteel world most of us take for granted. Land Park, so lush, so green, so close to the freeway.
And there's been theft. There's been instances of vandalism, defecation on people's yards.
Mitch Rohrer is president of the Neighborhood Association. Here you will find homes worth $1 million. Yet blight is in plain sight. Some here say they've had enough.
There ain't no home worth $1 million. Better be a freaking gigantic mansion. Okay, and it still wouldn't be worth $1 million because you'd never build on it. No lie, that'd be fact. You'd never build on it.
I'm going to fight for public safety.
Two neighborhoods so close and yet so far apart.
This is my first time ever being homeless. And it hurts me because everybody that come out here, they automatically assume I'm an addict.
There you go. That's what I was talking about. It's her first time ever being homeless. She's probably homeless because she can't even afford to rent a single place over her head. Probably couldn't even afford efficiency with the way greed has become and nobody caring and nobody looking out. You can just keep asking for more and more until it goes to the point to where nobody can afford it. And all the people that ain't filthy rich end up on the street homeless like her. And then you're all going to point your finger and say, all these homeless people are drug addicts and thieves and this and that. And there ain't no truth to that. There ain't no truth to it at all. And there will be a percentage of homeless people that are going to be drug addicts, and there'll be some of them that were drove to being drug addicts by the society that threw them out.
Because every homeless person is an addict, but that's not true.
Rebecca L. Sue worked as an in-home caregiver until the hours went away and then the income. Now, this is all she can afford.
I didn't want to be out here, but I'm out here because of life.
And Rebecca, just one of 6,000 people living on our streets.
In California, 2/3 of our homeless population is living outdoors. And I think because some of those folks are so visible that we make it easy to forget that there are a lot of people on the streets who are real victims.
The majority of these I would have to refer to as vagrants, because these are folks who passing through the neighborhood, coming into city center to get food or clothing or whatever they need, and then back to their camp, wherever it may be.
Mitch is describing a cycle, and Sacramento Mayor Darrell Steinberg knows all about it. He co-chairs a statewide commission dealing with the estimated 100,000 homeless across California.
Huh? Don't ring a bell. The estimated 100,000 people homeless. Oh, it's got to just be because they're all drug addicts and all losers, right? Not. It's deliberately done. It's deliberately done. It's what happens when you allow power and greed in, and ego. Absolutely cost people. They don't care who they walk on to get more, and they don't care what they do to another human being's life. As long as it's all about their own selfish greed, right?
I think that's unacceptable. And I think most Californians think it's unacceptable. And if it costs $1.5 billion a year to get 75 or 90,000 people off the streets into shelter with the right intensive case management, that's better than we have now.
What we have now are too many places like this. The K Street Mall turned into a refuge of last resort. Dion Dwyer knows it intimately. He works for the Downtown Sacramento Partnership. They do their best to connect people with housing.
People often say that we have a housing crisis, but I'd say we have a humanitarian or homeless crisis that's stuck in a system that is in crisis. Our mental health and our drug addiction services, they're just not able to meet the needs of an individual.
Do you see this? Mental health and drug addiction. You see how they're lying to you? It's not that there isn't a problem in that area, but they're steering you to believe that the entire homeless thing is because of mental health and drugs. No truth to it at all. It's because of greed. It's because of not protecting people, freaking working their tails off freaking 40 hours a week and plus, and still can't afford a place to live in California. Not even a one bedroom working full time can they afford. All of their paycheck, both of them, would be completely gone, and they'd still fall short of the damn paying their bills and wind up on the street anyhow. You see how we're not going to tell you about that? See how we're not going to talk about that?
On the sidewalk.
Jerry, we need to come out.
Across Sacramento, from downtown to even in Midtown, homelessness is more than a humanitarian issue. When taxpayers and property enter the equation, it becomes political.
There you go. With property and taxpayers and greed and non-care and more greed. That's right. And more power and more greed enters the equation. 100,000 people now and growing.
Ana Garcia lives and works in Midtown. Like many residents and business people across the city, she supports shelters as a solution. But when Mayor Steinberg asked every neighborhood to identify possible locations, many people pushed back.
Everybody doesn't want it in their backyard. And you can't just like put them all in a bus and ship them out. If you don't get to the root cause, it's just always going to be, and the root cause is mental health.
Oh, yes, right. If you can't get to the root cause, nobody ever chases after the root cause. Not in today's society. They all chase after symptoms. Nobody knows what the root cause is. That's why I wish all of your AC techs, your HVAC techs, and all of your mechanics and stuff wouldn't look for root causes no more on the people who are doing this. That way, when they need something done, they can keep paying for it over and over. When they get mad about it, say, we're just acting like you.
I find businesses that blow me away.
And so the ever-elusive questions. How did we get here? How do we solve it? And is there a place for people where low-income housing is so hard to find?
I've already told you how we got here, but of course, he's going to play dumb. How did we get here?
Where just the number of people living in cars has increased by 60% in 2 years. This is not the way 68-year-old Lizanne Strait chose to live her golden years.
My bad.
Though in this world...
Now, do you think that most homeless people would have vehicles like this and be able to maintain tags? No. You know the reason there's an epidemic of people living in their cars? Because we kept rising the price of rent. And we kept rising it until it was out of the reach of more and more and more people, and more people winded up living on the streets that were working their butts off. That's why they had a car. It wasn't because they were lazy.
Any roof beats no roof at all.
This is how I get in. Try to.
And yet Lisa Ann is hardly unique. She's 1 in 5. That's how many homeless seniors we have. 20%. Lori Mendoza fits the demographic too.
This is my sanctuary whenever it gets too difficult out there on the streets. I had a house in Barracks. My grandchildren were 4th generation into that house.
But the bank foreclosed on that house in 2010. It reduced Lori's life to this and whatever comes.
See that? The bank foreclosed on them because they broke their butts and worked their asses off and still couldn't afford what the greed wanted. What the greed wanted. A man-made thing, money. And this is how we treat one another over a man-made thing. That's right. There's no excuse for it. Outside of filthy greed and no care.
She could muster.
I have cooked in here, but it's dangerous, you know, and you really don't want to do that.
Lori has 4 sons. Growing up in the old place, life was good until 19-year-old James developed a serious mental illness.
He was in Napa Hospital for 9 months, and when he came out, they did a wonderful job.
But next, a change in medication. It sent James spiraling. In an absence of treatment, Lori is convinced he's living somewhere out here.
He's doing the drugs too.
So now Lori is out here, worried that her son has given up. Every day she searches, praying for the relief and simple pleasure that would come from seeing his face.
And I'm all he has. I feel like I'm not going to live very much longer because of this all. Sometimes he lays back here.
Despondency begets determination and finally luck as at last she spots her boy.
James?
But it's only a respite for a mother with a son having mental health issues while addicted to meth and living on the streets. What can save her child?
So what's going on, James?
We have to have enough ready services and programs to meet the needs of that population. And until we do, will continue to experience issues on the street. I think there's also a misnomer that the solution to very complicated and diverse issues such as homelessness can have a simple solution.
Yeah, very complicated, huh? No. There's nothing complicated about care. There's nothing complicated about understanding that you can't allow people who own property and renting it out to hike rent up and keep hiking rent up and not protect the people who are breaking their butts and working their butts off, okay, to where a landlord can just keep hiking rent up for their own greed, their own selfish interest, and pile people on the streets for their own greed.
Solutions? Elusive when we confront the skyrocketing numbers of homeless people.
Every couple of years, every community is expected to do a point-in-time count. This is a requirement from the federal government.
The latest count shows homelessness has jumped 19% in Sacramento in 2 years, with close to 6,000 people living on our streets.
93% of the folks that we surveyed said they come from Sacramento. So it's dispelling a myth that somehow Sacramento is attracting people from outside the region.
I don't believe the statistics that all of these people are homegrown. I believe when you open up and you say, oh, here I am, I'm open for business for vagrants or homeless people, come and get your needles, come and get your food.
He's a liar. Listen to him. He's lying his butt off to you. He wants you to believe it's only the drug addicts.
That they're going to come.
Wherever the homeless come from, they...
Right, just the drug addicts. They'll all know right where to come into a city they've never been in their life. They'll know that on this street and their way around it and everything, just to go right there for drugs. What a crock of crap.
Now find themselves in a turf war between the haves and the have-nots. It falls on the police to protect everyone.
Police officers are in a job that only police officers can respond to some of the things that police officers respond to. Police officers are expensive.
Studies show that between 911 calls and emergency room visits, supportive housing is actually cheaper long-term than chronic homelessness. Sergeant William Wan leads a special homeless impact team. He took us to filthy water tunnels where people live.
It is a drainage ditch, yeah. And right now it's kind of somewhat dry, but when the rain starts, they're all going to be underwater.
Which means that all of this stuff has to go. The living rooms, the game rooms, the crack pipes, the shopping carts, and of course, residents like Paul Flanagan.
Right now I live in a tunnel in on Mac Road in Stockton. I have to look for another spot to move to.
It might eventually be here. On this lot in Meadowview, the city plans to build what it calls a low-barrier triage shelter. Low barrier means no drug testing, and pets are allowed.
Catch this. Pay attention close.
There is one catch. The new shelter will accommodate women and children only.
That's right. There is one catch. If you were born with a penis between your legs, die. You're not allowed. Get out of here. You're not allowed. We hate men. Huh, does that sound like a familiar message? It should. 30 plus years of it. Nobody's standing up against it. And here you are. With all the homeless. Well, we'll open this spot for women and children only. Fuck the men. They can die off, right?
So guys like Paul, out of luck.
That's right. Got a penis? You're out of luck. Because here's some more male bashing right in your face.
In this case, we've got people that are completely blocking the sidewalk.
Back at Ahern and North B, morning sheds light on eviction notices. Everyone here knows the drill. People clear the sidewalks while police, they offer one person a slight ray of hope.
They have one bed for a woman that'll be available at 11 a.m.
That's right. They have one bed for a woman. Did you catch this? Okay, look at the domestic violence shelters across America. Now count them. But I want you to count the ones that are for men. And then count the ones that are for women. And then count the ones that don't discriminate against each gender. And write them on a piece of paper and go from state to state. You won't be surprised when you find out that the ones for men, what a waste of paper. That's right. The ones for men and women, what a waste of paper. The ones for women, oh, we're filling the sheets. Look at that.
So basically, it's the same thing that happens every day. We call over there to see if they have any shelter beds available. Today they had one for a woman.
Good.
Yep, and tomorrow there might be another one for a woman. And the day after, another one for a woman. Then for a woman, and then for a woman. Just like that spot they're getting ready to put together and open. Conveniently only for women and children. Oh, and as soon as the boy gets to be like 14 to 16 years old, he'll be kicked out too. That's right, because he's got a penis between his legs. He won't be allowed. He won't be allowed based on his gender. That's right. In a country where women love women, that's right, men love women, women hate men, and men hate men. 30 plus years of Hollywood male shaming all over the media, in your music, in your sitcoms, in your movies. She's done a wonderful job of brainwashing society, and here's the results. It's even affecting the homeless. So don't be a man, and become homeless in the good country of America, because you will be slapped down. Okay, even if it's because the landlord kept hiking the rent until you couldn't afford it no more. Okay, you won't be a victim because you're a man, you're a loser. But she might be a victim. That's right. She'll at least get something opened up, some attention towards her, right? But you're not to be a man, right? That's why I did this reply, because of the complete hogwash. And I'm not even playing anymore because they're lying to the public.